Out of all the questions in my life, there's one that always haunts me. Why? Why do people I love pass away? Why do so many bad things happen to good people? Why be good if you're just gonna die in the end? Why? For a long time, my questions had no answers. That is, until I watched Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life. The movie starts with a mom losing her son. There's nothing more disturbing, more perplexing, more depressing than losing a child. And after suffering, after feeling anger and despair and grief, she asks the question we all ask.
Lord, why? Where were you?
And the movie answers her question in a very fascinating way. With a quote, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy?" The full meaning behind the quote? The whole movie serves as an answer. After the quote, Malick shows us a sequence showing how the world was created. What Malick is trying to show here is that the beginning of the world and the beginning of life was mysterious and fantastical and beautiful and hard to explain. He asks, where were you when God created the earth? How can you know and question his plan and continually ask why when you can't even comprehend the vastness of everything? Can't understand why the world was created in the first place? How can you question him when every moment of sorrow and happiness in the past has led to this moment? Malick shows that although human beings are great at answering the how questions in science, we have no way of answering the why questions. It reminds me of a quote from an essay I read recently called The Force of Spirit. In one part, the essayist and his wife have a discussion about what the difference is between dead matter and living organisms. The wife says that she read an article that said the difference between the two is in how electrons bond with oxygen. The essayist tells her that sounds reasonable, but then he asks her a profound question. I wonder why oxygen goes hauling around electrons in the first place. Wouldn't it be easier, I say, for oxygen to sit still and leave matter alone? Why stir things up? In other words, she asks, why life? Yeah, why life? Why life?
That's where God lives.
This made me understand that the question was deeper than I thought. By asking why do bad things happen, I was also asking another hidden question. Why don't only bad things happen? Why do good things happen? When I was asking why suffering, I was also asking why do we also have moments of profound joy?
Good night. We'll see you in 5 years.
Malick shows that we can't always understand the world or God and its plan. Instead, it's something we should appreciate, something to greet with wonder and awe. When we look up to the skies and ask why sadness, why ugliness, why death, we are also asking why happiness, why beauty, why life. It made me realize how confusing the questions I asked God were. And while I watched the movie, I felt something I couldn't describe into words. It conveyed some feeling to me that made me realize the incompleteness of my questions. It reminded me of poetry. When I was a kid, I used to hate poetry. I used to decode poems the way traditional English teachers would instruct you to. Highlight the similes in green, underline lines that demonstrate themes, any sign, any clue to desperately figure out a deeper meaning to the poem so that I could pass the class and never have to think about poetry ever again. It took me a while to realize that poems aren't supposed to give you answers. An article I read recently put it best. Poems contain a central unsayability. Somewhere in the poem or at its end, knowingness stops. I heard the poet Ralph Angel say, poetry has always existed and always will exist, because there will always be the need to say that which cannot be said. When I finally understood that about poetry, I understood what I'd been doing wrong my whole life. I treated life like I treated poems in high school. I tried to figure out what life means by decoding it, by looking for symbols underlining moments in my life that are supposed to mean something. I wanted to find a meaning to my life so I would never have to think about it ever again. But what I learned is that poetry is special because you can't describe it. It's something you feel, something you don't know how to put into words. Poetry is unsayable, and like life, poetry is meant to be felt, not understood. And becoming an adult is becoming comfortable with that, and understanding the wonderful and frustrating unsayability of life. And although we will always try to capture it in our art, our books, our poetry, there will always be something that is shrouded from us, where the knowingness stops. Maybe when we ask why, we don't really know the question. Why is just a feeling of pain masked in a single word? We don't know how to put it aptly, or maybe language itself can't express how we feel. We don't know the question. It's so intriguing, unsayable, and so incomplete. Maybe the only answer to an incomplete question like why is an incomplete answer.